We are live on YouTube, and Carol, you are the host again. UGTV will get started in about 2 minutes. We are live on UGTV.
Thank you, Mariah. I see that Commissioner Townsend has joined us, but we are the only two members of the committee at the moment. So we'll go ahead and wait until we have a quorum.
Is Commissioner Bynum sitting in for someone tonight, Mr. Chair?
And she just answered. She's just here to watch. Don't need to be a panelist. So that would mean that we're still waiting on Commissioners Burrows, Walters, and Johnson.
Johnson just got promoted.
Perfect. There I see his smiling face. We have 3 of the 5 members present. We need one more member to have a quorum, so we'll just hang on for a few more minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna hold Commissioner Bynum just in case we don't get another commissioner on board.
Thank you.
Bridget, this is Emmerich. Can you give me a call, please, regarding Jeff Bryant?
Sure, I'll call you now.
Thank you.
So for the other members of the committee, I just got a communication from Commissioner Burrows that he is in the process of logging in. He's run into a little snag, but he should be with us shortly, at which point we will have our quorum and we can begin the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that update.
And it looks as though Commissioner Burrows has been able to join us now. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies, computer issues.
It's at this point, it's all good because it's all a new craziness every day and we just adapt and overcome. So, well, we are then with 4 of our 5 committee members here. We are ready to proceed. And before I call this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee to order, I'd like to announce that due to COVID-19, some members of the committee, some staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, as well as being on site. All participants joining by phone or computer should mute their devices when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and by title every time you speak, so that the public who is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. So with that said, we'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee, and I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call. Walters. Johnson.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here. Thank you so much. Let's see, we have had no revisions to the agenda after it was originally published for this committee. So our first item of business are approval of our standing committee minutes. We have 3 batches of minutes to consider this evening. We have our minutes of September 28, which have been revised to make a correction in the text, and then our minutes of our meetings on November 2 and November 30. And so what we would do at this point, I would ask Commissioner Townsend, have you had a chance to review the minutes of September 28, and are you comfortable that they are now accurate?
Mr. Chairman, I have not. I have not received those. I checked the email. Maybe they were delivered some of the way. They're not in my hard packet yet. So I have not. However, if the other members have reviewed it, some of those may be requests that I made. I'm not sure without seeing them in front of me which particular set that would be. So
I believe it was a set that referenced the Quindaro Ruins site and a comment or a request that you had made regarding that.
okay, well, in the absence, and I'm not sure why, of those corrected minutes, I would ask if the rest of the committee agrees just to set them aside one more time until I can see them. I just don't have them.
I'll look for direction from the rest of the committee on that to set aside the minutes of September 28th until our next meeting and to consider the other 2 sets this evening.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burrows, I would move that we set aside the requested minutes for review and move for approval of the remaining 2.
Commissioner Johnson, I'll second that.
Fantastic. We have a motion and a second to set aside September 28th until next month and to approve those of November 2 and November 30th, 2020. At this point, I just asked the clerk to call a quick roll so that we can verify that.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye, and I do believe we have Commissioner Walters with us as well.
Yes, I will vote yes. Aye.
Walters.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much. That does take care of that. It moves us to our committee agenda. We have 2 items on our committee agenda tonight. The first one are land bank option applications. And to present these, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Judd Knapp.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will share my screen. I am Judd Knapp. I'm the interim land bank manager. All right. So for today, I have 6 applications that will be presenting today. 3 are single family homes. 1 is a garage, and 2 are property options. Now, this is a brand new title. They are two options where no structure will be built, but the sale will depend on if the zoning can be changed. So if the one down south is in a floodplain, so it's technically unbuildable, and the one up north is surrounded by like agricultural use. I will get to those at the end, but if you have a better name for property options, or I'm all ears for that. The projected increase in appraised value of these 6 properties will be $560,000. Since the option started 1 year ago, it's a projected increase of 9.7 million. All right, so our first option agreement is for a single family home at 144 North 61st Street. It's zoning R1. It is 5 acres. Now, when we met with staff, they said, can this lot be split in half and we build 2 houses instead of 1? And I come to find out that there's no sewer in this area. So to have a septic tank on a new lot, you need 3 acres. So that would total 6, and we're at 5. So only 1 house can be built on this lot. The housing details are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet. This is a modular home. The projected start date is March 1st, and projected completion is September 1st of 2021. The next steps for this build would be building inspection approval, a septic permit, a building estimate, and then proof of funds to cover that building estimate. The recommendations from the staff and Land Bank Advisory Boards had no comments. Do I have any other comments on this application?
No, I'd say continue on.
All right. The next one is for Habitat for Humanity. It's for a new single-family home at 3008 North 30th Street. Its zone is R1-B. The house details are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet. They plan on starting this project in September 21 and completing it January 22. The next steps for this one would be building inspection approval, cost to build, and a proof of funds to cover that cost of building estimate. This one also, the recommendation from the staff advisory committee didn't have a comment on this one. The Land Bank Advisory Board did have a no vote based on the properties located within the Quindaro town site boundary. So I provided a map. Up here in the black outline is the Quindaro Township boundary, and the property, the application is down. So it's definitely far away from that. Do I have any comments for this application? All right, I will go on to the next one. The next one is for Aaron Stryka at 841 Shawnee Road. It's for a single family home. The acreage of this is 5.73. And I added a little picture of where the house is proposed to go. I did walk this with Aaron and her builder. And it's very, very hilly actually, but this is a little flat spot here. But it is below Shawnee Road, and Shawnee Road is where the sewer is, and the sewer is 10 feet deep there, but the house where it would be built is 20 feet below the street. So they have to figure out what we're going to do with the sewer. Either they're going to like pump it up, or they're going to have a septic tank. The house details are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. They project to start this in February 2021 and complete in January of 22. The next steps are building inspection approval for their plans, resolve the sewer access issue that we have, and provide a building estimate and provide proof of funds. The recommendation from the staff advisory committee, they only had a concern about the sewer access, and the Land Bank Advisory Board did not have a comment. Do I have any comments for this one? Go on to the next. The next one is for a 2 to 3 car garage built at 741 Shawnee Road. The applicant currently owns 753 Shawnee Road. It is zoned R-1. The building details are 2 to 3 car garage. The timeline is they want to start in July of 2021 and complete in September of 2021. The next steps for this one, the first one is rezoning. The staff advisory committee, because it's garage parking for commercial use, is not consistent with neighborhood zoning. So this would have to go zoned at C2 or C3. And then building inspection approval, building estimate, and proof of funds to cover the building estimate. The recommendation, also the Land Bank Advisory Board had a question. Will the neighborhood get to comment on the zoning change? And the answer is yes, when it is rezoned. They will have public comment. Do I have any comments on this application?
Well, Judd, I'll actually make a couple of comments here. First of all, it seems if the committee agrees that this might be a logical place to break all of these properties, the 3 single-family homes and the garage, as a separate batch, because you had said that there were some special circumstances with the next 2. Is that right?
That is correct, Commissioner.
But you also indicated that there may be a change of zone required for the garage. And is that similar to the next 2?
There is new construction on this option. The next 2 do not have construction on them.
Perfect. Okay.
But all three would need rezoning. So in that respect,
Okay.
this one and the next 2 are also.
But that's okay. It's dissimilar enough from the next 2 that what I would ask then is that the committee consider these 3 single-family home applications and the garage application. And I'd ask the committee if there are any questions or comments, and I'll recognize Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to wait till the end. I did have a comment about the proposed new construction at 3008 North 30th. I want to applaud Mr. Knapp for including on that layout the relative map of the historic Quindaro Township. This has already proved to be, as I forecasted, a good tool so that the community can see the relative positions to such projects coming forward as this new home with respect to where that designated area is. So it's already paying off. So thank you for being prescient enough to include that on your display. And with that, I would move to approve all 3 of these applications, 144 North 61st Street, 3008 North 30th Street, and 841 Shawnee Road.
Commissioner Johnson, second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the 3 single-family home option applications. I'd ask if any of the other members of the committee have comments or questions about these applications. I'd ask if anyone in attendance has comments or questions about these applications. And I do see for the clerk's office, I do see that Ms. Jefferson has her hand raised. And now I've lost her.
She's been promoted to panelist, Mr. Chair.
Oh, there she is. Okay, she just showed up again. Mrs. Jefferson, it looks like you would like to make a comment or ask a question about these. And so I will recognize you for your 3 minutes of comment. And you will just need to unmute. There you go.
Great.
Perfect. You've got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I had some issues there. Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman McKiernan, and good evening to everyone. The comments that I have, there are two comments on the North 30th Street application and the North 61st, I want to say, application. And I do also appreciate the map that speaks to the commemorative site for the township. However, the comments that I have is that first, when I was looking at the town site and the Northeast Area Master Plan, the Northeast Area Master Plan talks about reinvestment in the town site area. And I couldn't reconcile that statement and the benefits of that, as well as the intentional enlargement of the Northeast Area Master Plan because of the investment possibilities in the town site, with the selling of land bank land as well as tax land in the town site. So I am prepared to say that according to the research that I have done, the town site extends beyond the North 30th Street location, the North 61st. In fact, the Quindaro town site extends from 17th Street to 42nd Street. So my request of this committee is that it consider pulling these two applications until there can be some additional discussion and proof of what I'm saying or disproving. But it seems to be in conflict with the Northeast Area Master Plan because the town site extends from East 17th Street to 42nd Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jefferson. Is there anyone else who is in attendance tonight who'd like to comment on these first three applications? I don't see any other hands raised. I'll ask the clerk's office, did we receive any communication regarding any of these first three applications?
Sure, say no comments. So no comments were received.
No comment. There have been no communications received from the clerk's office.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So with that comment from the public, I would turn back to the committee and ask for the committee's direction. I guess Commissioner Townsend, as the person who made the motion to approve these properties, do you have any thoughts based on the comment we just received?
Well, my thoughts are that the area of the Quindaro Township may be larger than just the specifically designated historic site. And I think that's what we can't lose track of. We want to see development in the entire area without jeopardizing the site that has been recognized by the U.S. government. You know, of course, Quindaro as an entire township was larger, but the area designated on the map is where the focus has been placed as a reminder of what was. In the meantime, it's still something, that whole area, to be developed. You know, with that, I would not mind withdrawing for 1 month these two items, but really no more than that. I mean, the idea is for development, not to endanger the Quindaro historic designated township site, which we see on the map. So that would be my concession to the comments made.
And Chairman, if I may, I'm happy to also show the directly from the Northeast Area Master Plan, the map. The map here that Judd has outlined actually includes more than is in the master plan. So we've even expanded that. So you can see here that, thanks Judd, that in blue, that is the area that is designated as the historic site, the township in the master plan.
And then where is the property that we are considering relative to the blue area? It's to the west, correct? To the left?
Yes.
It is right at
Oh,
30th,
sorry, it's south.
30th and Roswell, right where my cursor is. If you could see it, it's moving at the very bottom of the screen.
Ah, so it is south of Highway 5.
Correct.
And so then, okay. Well, I guess I would, at this point, we have a motion on the table and a second to approve these as submitted. And Commissioner Townsend was considering whether or not she wanted to modify that motion. And I guess I would look for direction to Commissioner Townsend. Otherwise, I will call for a, hang on just one second. It does appear that we have one of the applicants is here and also would like to make some public comment. I see the clerk's office has seen that Mr. Harrison had his hand raised. And before we go any further with the committee, what I would like to do is recognize Mr. Tyrone Harrison and say that you have 3 minutes in which to make comments to the committee about your application.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I just had a question as to the comment brought up in regards to 144 North 61st Street. Per the description that the person gave, I didn't see where the property in question for us would have fallen into that. And I just wanted to kind of get more understanding as to that concern and if the property that we are seeking would fall into that that map that she spoke of.
Mr. Harrison, that is a great question that I do not have the answer to, but based on the comments that were made, it would seem that your property on North 61st is not only to the west, but also to the south of the Quindaro designated area. Ms. Carter, do you have any clarification of that?
You're muted.
Sorry about that. That is correct. It is not only not anywhere near the Quindaro town site, but it is not even in the northeast area.
Because it is down just about 61st and K32, if I read the map right?
Correct.
Okay. Just up the hill from K32 to the north. And so then it would seem that the only property that we might consider based on the earlier comments are 3008 North 30th Street. And I would again look to Commissioner Townsend to see if she wishes to modify her initial motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, let me modify my previous motion. So I'm moving to approve the applications for the property at 144 North 61st Street and 841 Shawnee Road. With respect to 3008 North 30th Street, I move that the committee take this matter up again when it meets in March 2021.
Okay, so we have an amended initial motion and then we have a new motion. With regard to the amended initial motion to take 3008 North 30th out and just consider the other two properties, I would ask Commissioner Walters, or Johnson rather, who seconded, if you agree with the change.
Yes, I agree with the change.
And then is there a, okay, let's just take care of those two properties and then we'll go on to the one on North 30th. So there's been a motion and a second to approve North 61st and Shawnee Road as submitted. Roll call, please.
Yeah. Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. And then that takes us to the property at 3008 North 30th Street. Commissioner Townsend had made a motion that we hold that for a period of 1 month to determine how it intersects with the Quindaro Historical Site. Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
We have a motion and a second to hold that for a period of 1 month so that we can consider where it falls with relationship to the Quindaro Historic Site. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. That takes us to the garage application at 741 Shawnee Road. Is there a motion regarding this option application?
Mr. Chairman,
Move.
Commissioner Burrows, move for approval.
Johnson second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this option application as submitted. Is there any further discussion among the committee? Is there anyone in attendance who would like to comment on this particular application? Seeing no hands raised among the attendees, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Now, Mr. Knapp, I'd ask you to lay out for us the final two property options which have some special circumstances.
Yes, the next option agreement is at 3306 North 33rd Street. This is a little different because it's around the Bell Crossing area. It is surrounded by agricultural use. So we felt that it was not out of the ordinary to ask if we wanted to combine 3306 with 3631 to get them their ag use. But saying that, the ag use has to be 5 acres. This only gets them to 3. So they're not to 5 yet. I do have another. There is a property just to the south that is 2.4 acres that has the ag designation to it. I added the other acreages around this property for reference. The staff advisory committee were concerned that not enough acreage for agricultural zoning. But planning says there is the ag zoning to the south of 2.4 acres. So I believe they said they could give it a shot if they could get the ag designation. The Land Bank Advisory Board, the question if the property is within the Quindaro Township boundary again. Here's the township boundary in this map, and here is the map, the property in question here. It is 650 feet away from this line. So there, just to be clear, there's no construction added. There's no new structures being built for this option. This option is contingent on if they can get the zoning change. We will not sell it until that happens. And of course, if you approve it. That's all I have.
Do we have a property on South 73rd Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'll go on to the next. 1904 South 73rd Terrace. This is the they want it for storage for a landscape company. This is in the floodplain, so it is not buildable. The next steps for this one would be rezoning. If they get that rezoned, we can move forward. The staff advisory committee concerned that they'll have to build a parking lot and screening around this property. And the Land Bank Advisory Board did not have a comment on this application. And that sums up these last two property options.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. I would ask if members of the committee have comments or questions and recognize Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend, a question about the property at 3306 North 33rd. How many properties does Mr. Hernandez already own? Do you know? That name looks very familiar, and I know this committee has in the past wanted to take a closer look at people who may have already bought 5 or more properties from the land bank. And what is the plan for this particular property's use? I'm still not clear on that.
If you look at the screen here, they currently own 3656 North 34th Street. That's where their primary residence is. They recently purchased in the last few months 31 North 34th Street. And then they're requesting 3306 from the land bank. The use is I believe they currently have horses on 3631, and they wanted to increase the acreage so they could have that ag designation from planning.
But this is the first land bank lot that they are requesting to purchase.
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying they already have horses on 3631?
Yes, I believe so.
And primary residence is 3656?
Yes.
Okay.
But it is separated by right away or a road, so it doesn't go into their 5-acre count.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Their primary residence is separated from these other two lots by a road, so they do not go into the ag count to get to 5 acres.
Okay, but if they acquire 3306, that will or will not be adjoined for the purpose of accounting as agriculture with 3631.
That is correct. Yes.
Which is correct. It will be or it won't be.
That it will be correct that 3631 and 3306 would get the if the planning board approves it, agricultural.
So yeah, so they would need to apply to the planning commission for a variance to get that ag zoning because it's under 5 acres. So because we are not, we have no control over rezoning. So that's why we suggest this as an option, because if they are not going to get that rezoning, then there's no need to transfer that property. So they would be able to, with an option to start that application process. If they are successful in getting that variance, then we would transfer that property.
Okay. Here's my thought on this one. In light of what we just did with 3008 North 30th, which was farther away from the designated historic site and was proposed for a home, I would like to see this particular property also held for action until next month to be consistent. So that would be my motion to the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's hold that motion for just a moment, and I'll recognize Commissioner Walters.
Great, thank you. Well, I had some questions sort of similar to the direction I think Gail was going. First, has 3306 ever been a residential property? Has there ever been a home on that site?
I do not know.
If there has, it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
But we can check.
So could you summarize what you think the benefit to the county would be for us to make this transfer?
So most of the properties in this area are ag. This is a very kind of different general area than kind of the 3008, for example, that's very residential neighborhood. There's a significant amount of ag in this area. We don't anticipate, but you never know. So we don't anticipate a lot of residential growth in this area. There's quite a number of people who want to have investment in Wyandotte County with some animals and that type of thing. So, they would pay taxes. It would be minimal. So there's not a huge upside other than making some folks, some residents in our community happy by giving them the opportunity to have ag uses within the city limits.
Okay, and so I personally do not think we should bend the rules just in order to create more ag zoned property. And I did not realize that we rezoned property and gave variances to not meet the minimum requirements. I don't know why we have minimum requirements if we can have a variance to eliminate those minimum requirements. So I'm personally not too excited about making this transfer, but I'd be glad to second Commissioner Townsend's motion to defer it till next month.
And just to be clear on, a couple of these, as the land bank, we are not making any recommendation in terms of the rezoning, which is why we bring it forward to you as an option. So then it would have to go through the whole process of rezoning, which not only includes, public hearing and public meetings, but also would come back to the not only the Planning Commission, but the full commission for that approval. So we try to stay somewhat agnostic on planning issues.
Thank you. We have on the table a motion and a second to hold the property at 3306 North 33rd for a period of 1 month to investigate further a couple of concerns. First, its interaction with the Quindaro town site, and second, a policy consideration regarding rezoning. Do any other members of the committee have any comments or questions regarding either of these? And if I'm guessing right, we may end up splitting these two properties into two separate actions. So with not hearing from the committee, I would ask if anyone who is in attendance has any comment about either of these two applications. I do see that the applicant for North 33rd Street is present as an attendee, and wonder if Mr. Hernandez would like to speak with the committee. Mr. Hernandez, you have been now made a member of the panel, and there you are. And you are unmuted. And so if you'd like, you have up to 3 minutes to give the committee your perspective on your application.
¿Qué saber cuál es su... Hi, this is Arturo Hernandez's wife. How are you? It's Nancy.
Thank you very much. Great.
Okay, so yeah, we were just wondering, like you mentioned before, we do own the 3656, and we just recently purchased the 3301, which is right across our residential property. And we're actually looking forward to see if we can go ahead and also purchase the 3306 North 33rd Street.
Okay, and your goal then is, as we've heard, to combine 3631 and 3306 into one parcel, and you would then apply to have that parcel rezoned to agricultural, that new combined parcel. And that would be an application that would have to go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission would have to give you a variance or a deviate from our written ordinance, because the combined parcel would be smaller than the required 5 acres.
Okay.
I appreciate your clarifying that, appreciate your comments tonight. I would go back to the committee then and say we do have a motion and a second for 3306 North 33rd to hold for a period of 1 month for consideration of Quindaro Town Site and moving it forward to Planning Commission for rezoning. Any other comments or questions from the committee on that? And I do see Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm supportive of the motion. I think it's beneficial to ensure that the party of interest in that property fully understands the request that is, or the issue that's before them this evening. I sense a little bit of confusion, and I believe the 30 days would allow staff and the resident to clearly understand what needs to happen and how we will move forward within the 30 prior to the meeting next month, that they would have a chance to fully understand the ramifications of this decision this evening. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ensure that we are doing the right thing by postponing this so that the resident has time to be clear as to the direction and the wishes of the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner. I completely agree with you that this will give us an opportunity to make sure that everyone is clear on what the path forward will be and what the possible outcomes of that path will be. I appreciate your comment very much. Any other comments or questions from the committee on this property? Seeing none, roll call please on 3306 North 33rd.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye. Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Which then leaves us with 1904 South 73rd Terrace. And I would ask if there are comments, questions, or a motion on this application.
Walters, I would move for approval.
Burrows, second.
There's a motion and a second to approve this application as submitted. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Is there anyone in attendance tonight who'd like to comment on this particular application? I don't see any hands among the attendees list. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Appreciate your work on these. That takes care of all of our option applications and moves us to item number 2 on tonight's agenda. And that is an item that is for information only. It is a presentation on our tax sale process. And so I'm going to recognize Ms. Jenna Hillier, who is our delinquent real estate manager, and she will give us some insight into the tax sale process.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, we've had a lot of changes in 2020 was an obnoxious year. So thought we'd catch you up on some of the things we've done here in delinquent real estate and also share some of our successes in the past 7 years or so that we've had with delinquent real estate and sales and taxes. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen with you. I don't get the opportunity to do this very often.
You have done it.
I did it. Success number 1 right there. So when we started this adventure in a while back, we started off with more than 7,000 properties that were tax sale eligible, which means they were 3 or more years delinquent in their taxes and were eligible to be in a tax sale. And our goal at the time was to bring that down to 3,400. And as you can see over the years, we have brought that down to less than 3,000. So we have more than exceeded our goal as far as reducing the amount of tax sale eligible properties within Wyandotte County. So that is our win number 1. This is the amount of properties that we have processed throughout the years. We started off before we made some policy changes where instead of doing just two tax sales a year, we did 3. And we also changed some policy where instead of it going from, if it didn't sell in the tax sale, it would go back out into the world. And now if it doesn't sell in the tax sale, it goes to land bank. So between those policies, changing to 3 tax sales a year instead of just 2, and also holding on to the land and getting it tax current and into other owners' hands, we've been able to change the landscape of that. So we started off with 923 in 2015. And as you can see, that has gone almost up to almost 3,000 in 2019. 2020, as you know, was a weird year. So we only had 1 tax sale this year. And we were able to do that via the internet and online auction through Civic Source. And we were able to process 751 properties that year. And so far this year, we are at 1648. And we look to hitting our normal goal of over 2,200 by the end of the year. So we're already set for a good year with tax sales and to keep that trend going up. So with the online sale, it is an online auction. It is hosted by a company called Civic Source. It's an awful lot like eBay, if you've had that experience, which I think most of us have. But it also has an in-person component as well for those that don't have use of a smartphone or the availability of a computer. So the registration process is really similar to what it used to be. You either come in person or you can apply online through the UG, and this is the form that you would fill out. And you'd need to be real estate tax current, and also have a valid ID. This is emailed in or sent, and we research these people, these applicants, to see if they're eligible. And if they are used to be, they were given a bidder number. And now what we do as Civic Source has become part of our world, there's a second part to the registration process. So we accumulate a list of eligible bidders. And as we get more, we send them over to Civic Source, and they, on their side, are able to, after people have registered, are able to allow them to bid. So it's a 2-part registration process that has been working fairly well, but I think there's some confusion on. It's not an instantaneous thing. There are a lot of hands that have to touch it to make it work. And we are working on streamlining that process. It is getting easier to do. The first one was a very rapid, we need a tax sale, and we found these people and they helped us out, and they did a really great job of getting it together on short notice. And of course, our next tax sale was a month later, so we haven't been able to make as many changes as we'd like, but we expect the June sale to look a lot different because we'll have more time to adapt it to Wyandotte County. So after you've been approved through Unified Government, through the Delinquent Real Estate, you go to Civic Source and go ahead and go through the process like you would again, eBay is my best example. You go ahead and set up a password and an email address, and you don't have to change it. You do have to register with UG every sale to make sure that you still have a current ID and that you're not real estate property tax or real estate tax delinquent. But you do get to keep the same account with Civic Source. You only have to build that once, but they do have to release you into the wild basically to be able to bid on any of the sales that are after that. And this is what that looks like. It's your basic registration, an agreement to terms of the use of their site. And also the part of the process will be setting up a bank account. You don't necessarily have to pay through Civic Source, but you do have to attach a bank account to the site to be able to bid. You can either pay by your bank, or you can do a wire transfer. Or we also have the option where you can come pay in person at Memorial Hall the day of the sale. And people have to have their payment initiated by 4:45 in person or by 5 o'clock with Civic Source in order to be considered as a new owner of that property. So this is what this looks like. And there's this neat thing that we found recently with the kind of your wish list here. So you can go through the properties, you choose a sale. Our particular site has several auctions that happen at once. So instead of having to go through, they all start at the same time, but they have different closings. So people have an opportunity to bid on different properties and different auctions. So instead of scrolling through all of those, you can go through each one and star and highlight the ones that you're interested in. It'll make you a wish list, basically. So you can go through and put your notes in. This is one I need to go see, or whatever it is that you want to put on there. And it keeps it for you. So instead of having to go through, you can just go ahead and bid directly from your wish list, which looks like this. Well, actually, this is not it. This is a different one. But this is about proxy bidding, which is also a feature that you can find on several websites. So what you would do here is put in your highest bid. You only have $5,085 to bid on this property. The starting bid is $4,371. So you put in your highest bid, and it will automatically, every time somebody else bids, it'll bid you up automatically by $100 until you outbid the other person or they outbid you. You also have the opportunity to go in individually and bid up from there. And I believe that still has to be $100 increments as well. So here at the end, this is what that looks like. And there shouldn't be any mistaking that you're about to buy a property. It asks you for sure if this is something you want to do. And this is, again, this is the bidding from your wish list. This is what that would look like. So you don't have to go through everything. It just has them all laid out there for you. So you're bidding on Wagner Street and it didn't take, oh, by the way, let me say, these are obviously all from New Orleans. We didn't get any screenshots of our Wyandotte one yet. Those are coming. So this is going to look a little bit different than what our site looks like. And this is what it looks like when you're in the property. It has a map here on top, highlighting the area that you're going to be looking at. As you scroll down towards the bottom, it has more information on the property, including for us, it has pictures of the houses, also other fees and that might not have shown up in the minimum bid for various reasons. So what happens with this, there's a rolling bid. So you can't have somebody come in the last minute and steal your property away from you. If somebody bids within the last 5 minutes of a sale, it extends the sale time. We had one the other day. We just had a sale on Thursday that went for 2 hours. Which is not what it was set to do, because there was one property that people were very slowly bidding on. They would wait to the very last second and bid, but it gave them the opportunity to not have somebody come in last minute and just take it away. So I think it's a fantastic feature. And it gives you this opportunity. So you didn't win it. This one says that you did. So after you do win the property, you agree to the terms again and gives you your total due. So if you've bought multiple properties, you are expected to pay for them all at the same time. You need to make a payment for all of them. It's not broken out. And there's a lot of information here to cover. I probably missed something, so I'll be happy to take questions here at the end. These are the results of our last 2 online tax sales. I don't have all the numbers for our Thursday sale back in yet because it takes 3 to 5 days to get all the wire transfers and the bank transfers in hand at Civic Source, and they give us that information. So we'll have those numbers for you next week. This is what December 2020 looked like. We had quite a few people pay ahead of time. 80 parcels got on payment plans, and 72 sold at auction, bringing us to a little over $500,000 in revenue for the county, or paid back taxes during that sale. And in this one, this one's pretty neat. Well, we had 728 that started. We had 300 that came out before sale, and which means they either got on payment plans or redeemed, or something else happened. But generally, those are the 2 things that do. Then we had 314 that went to auction. So we sold a third of the properties that were at auction that day, which is really neat. And half of those actually happen to be vacant lots. So people are interested in buying, purchasing, and building land, building houses here in Wyandotte County. The market's changing, and we're hoping that they're looking at these as opportunities to grow our community and not just land to sit on. So these are the upcoming dates for our sales. The 28th, you missed it, sorry. June 3rd is our next one, so we'll have lots of time in between here and there to tweak this and improve the way that it looks and its functionality and educate the public a little bit more on how to use the site and to streamline that a little bit better. Every time we've had a sale, we've learned something new. So hopefully in the next 4 months or so, we'll be able to pick up some new tips and be able to help people and get some how-to tutorials out there for people to hop on and look at. And also they're planning on doing a mock tax sales. People can get in there and get used to what that looks like and feels like instead of trying to figure it out under pressure. So those are the dates. We also have one in October, and we are keeping to our original idea of not overlapping tax sales with taxes due, so Treasury is not overwhelmed with lots of customers. So this year we are back on track with that agreement and with our sales. So I am open for questions.
Ms. Hillier, thank you very much for this presentation to the committee. We appreciate the way that you and your team have been able to adapt during 2020 to a new landscape and still be able to get the work done. I'd ask the committee if there are any comments or questions and recognize Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Ms. Hillier.
Good evening.
Got a couple of comments and questions. The first is again to applaud you and everyone else involved, as Commissioner McKiernan has already stated, with continuing to move forward on these delinquent property sales despite COVID and that the new challenges it brought. More specifically, got a couple of questions. You mentioned, and for some reason I really couldn't hear you.
I'm losing my voice for some reason today, sorry.
Well, to the point that I can recall over a year ago was a concern for me about the fairness of this process for people who may not have access to internet and that type of thing. So could you explain again how, that was overcome so that this is open to everyone?
Sure. We do. The Civic Source has sent us several laptops, actually more than several. We have more than enough for people to be able to come into Memorial Hall and bid in person if they don't have access to technology at home. So we did have, over the two sales we've had 4 people come in who needed help either getting registered. One person called ahead. Because of COVID, we have some limitations on the amount of people we can have in the room, but that hasn't seemed to be an issue. We have had one person who's called to request the use of our technology. The other 3 were there having issues with registration and wound up just staying or needed help with translation. That's the other service that we provide there, is for people who are who don't speak English. So my staff has been able to help them through the process.
Okay, so someone who is interested in participating but could not do so at home for lack of the technology necessary can contact your office. And what office would that be? Just for the record?
Real estate. We're in the courthouse on the 2nd floor.
Okay, and then you can, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. They can call and talk to my staff and just let them know that they're coming so we can make sure we have the proper protection in place and the right amount of computers for people.
Okay, well, appreciate overcoming that concern and that process. Secondly, and this is a good follow behind of the preceding matters that this committee just addressed. Mr. Del Toro, I don't believe will mind me using his name. I want to know how a future Del Toro situation is being avoided. And by that, I mean, last year, this committee dealt with property that really was at the doorstep of the Quindaro Cemetery. the property leading up right to the Quindaro Seminary. So it was smack dab in the historic area that we were talking about a few minutes ago. We were able to broker a deal and just trade off that property that Mr. Del Toro had bought, as anyone could have done, from the tax sale. So I want to know how we are avoiding future situations like that, so that we're not selling from the tax sales, which do not come before this committee. So we can't monitor it. But I was very aware and made this point about future tax sales. And is there some way that your office is checking for property sold so that they are not in or near that designated, that finite designated area that we just discussed?
We can add that. What happens is we get a general list. It is random, just tax delinquent. And then my abstractors start working from that. If there are areas that we can put areas on hold, or there's, if they come across, this is a different example, but strange little pieces of land that don't have any connection to the road. They're just hanging out there. There's just little bits and pieces of things that probably shouldn't be sold, right of ways. We were putting those, parking those someplace else and not selling those right now. We're figuring out what to do with that at the moment. But if it comes to our attention, these are things that we need to not abstract, because these guys are just, they're just doing their job. They pull up a delinquent property and they follow the trail. If we have specifics that we don't want to have abstracted for a tax sale, I just need to know what those boundaries are and we can avoid that.
Well, at this point, I would humbly recommend that you might get in touch with Mr. Knapp.
Okay.
For a copy of that distinctly designated area, so that we have some idea, if any. There may be no more they come up with that way, but
right.
Just out of an abundance of caution.
Okay.
If whatever list you have for sale is reviewed within the context of those properties' proximity to that, we can avoid a Del Toro situation, because that is land that for the time being, we do not want to sell.
Okay, we can do that. I would gladly work with the land bank and economic development to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay. Third thing, just looking at this, and Wyandotte County's home, but for a period of time, I lived in New Orleans, so that was interesting to see that. And the 913 still has love for the 504. And it raised the question, I guess yet to be seen, how many potential buyers might we get from other locales outside of Wyandotte County? You said there's a lot of interest in building homes, which is great. But that's just something I was considering when I saw the New Orleans addresses, and it may be too soon to know, but.
I was in a conversation with my contact at Civic Source, and he said that he recognized quite a few bidders from Tennessee, and that he's worked with in other places that are good developers that do good work, that were interested in properties here. So we do have the opportunity to expand our base of people who are willing to come build here.
Well, that's the predicate. If they're willing to build, yes, and not just be absentee
right
landlords, that was my concern. But overall, thank you very much for your
that's always the concern,
information.
As to how much, whether or not people are going to come in and buy, or whether they live here or not, if they're going to come build and do something with it, or if they're not. So I understand that completely. Could be a great opportunity, but could not be.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll recognize Assistant County Administrator Sieben.
Yeah, this is Can you hear me?
You're frozen.
Now we can.
Yeah, it was a weird freeze. I just wanted to state, what Jenna was saying about sort of how we're handling these. Certainly one of the things that we've started 2 years ago now was our land asset management team. I think where we could kind of work together with not only the land bank, but some of our other UG departments would be taking any of those ones that are coming for sale that direction. We already do meet often with County Administrator Doug Bach, as well as Catherine Carter, to go over potential pieces of property in the sale that the UG would have a significant interest in, but normally at that point they're already abstracted. So we can look at our processes a little differently, perhaps moving forward to address Commissioner Townsend's concern. It's a good one that's brought up. We are actually currently working through all of the properties that are in the land bank that we do not want to have for sale, that are UG rights of way and other similar types of properties that simply don't belong in the land bank for sale to folks. And that's another project that our group is working on there. So I think we're in a great spot moving forward. And I want to thank Jenna and her team for everything they've done to get us tax current, which was in our recent Friday notes. So.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Again, this presentation was for information only, and so I will just echo Assistant County Administrator Sieben and say to Ms. Hillier, thank you to you and your team for great work. We look forward to you continuing to do great work, and we look forward to you coming back before the committee sometime in the future with another update.
Thank you very much.
That is the last item on this committee's agenda. So with no other items before us, this meeting is adjourned. I will turn the computer over to Commissioner Burrows for Economic Development and Finance.
Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan. And before we get started, I do want to welcome the public to the Economic Development, Finance, and Standing Committee that, as we've been doing for a while now. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is the current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. And due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. So welcome, everyone. I will now call the meeting of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee to order. And I want to welcome everyone to this meeting, and at this time would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Here.
Walters,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
Burrows.
Here. Thank you. I do not believe there's any revisions to the agenda this evening. Staff, please make sure that's accurate.
There are no revisions.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the standing committee minutes from the November 2nd and the 30th, 2 sets of minutes.
McKiernan, move to approve as submitted.
Walters, second.
We have a motion and a second committee to approve the minutes of the November 2nd and November 30th meetings. Any comments, concerns? Hearing none, I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. I did ask for a vote on those because we had two sets. I wanted to ensure that we did get them both approved and there'd be no confusion on that. Committee, we do have a very light agenda this evening, which is something I'm not really used to, but is much appreciated. But our first item up this evening is our only action item that I'm aware of, and it's a resolutions to set a public hearing for the creation of a redevelopment district at 6700 Call Drive. And at this particular time, this was submitted by Catherine Carter, Director of our Economic Development. So I would ask Catherine to please present this evening. Welcome, Catherine. You're muted. We can't hear you. We seem to have some technical difficulties. Staff, are we able to contact her to see if there's a way to unmute her, or?
I'll email her the phone number so she can have that as a backup in case she needs to call in.
Okay.
I think she just did something though.
Headphones.
There you go. Anything yet?
Strange.
There we go. We can hear you.
How about now? Anything?
Very good.
Testing. Nothing?
Go up just a little bit.
Just increase your volume.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
A little?
Yeah.
Okay. That's better than nothing. Any better?
Yes, that's it right there. You're good to go.
Okay. That very strange. I didn't touch it from one meeting to the next, but it has a life of its own. All right. Well, this is quick and I will speak loud, so hopefully it will work. What is in front of you, this first item tonight, is a resolution to set a public hearing date. So again, this is not going into the project, but it's setting a public hearing date for the creation of a redevelopment district. With a TIF district, with that process, it's quite a lengthy statutorily required process that first requires you all to vote on setting a date. So we're almost 2 months out in terms of the actual public hearing, which we're proposing be on March 25th. So I'm going to give just a very brief kind of teaser about this project. And then at the next month, our EDNF meeting on March 1st, I will go into a actual full presentation of this project, which would also include the development agreement. So you will have a full presentation prior to the public hearing on March 25th. But again, this action tonight is just solely setting the public hearing date. So this is 6700 Caw Drive. It is a single parcel right here. If you can see the outline in black, you've got the Happy Foods, a whole lot of stuff. Heatherby's, which a restaurant that actually closed a couple months ago during the pandemic, a bar that I believe is also closed. And then Jones's Barbecue brought some kind of reinvigorated this parcel here just a couple years ago. The proposal would be for this parcel to be turned into a TIF district for a single project plan. Here's the teaser. What they're planning to do would be to build a brand new grocery store under the Fresh Market brand. This is a full service grocery store, bakery, meat counter, great produce. There's, I think, 3 others in the metro area, one in KCK on Metropolitan, if you'd all like to check it out. as well as additional retail space and a permanent location for Jones's Barbecue. So they would also have some indoor seating as well as retain the great patio and their smoker and stuff outside. And then finally, some fast food as well. So this is just, again, a little teaser on what's coming to you next month, where we'll have a much more robust presentation. But I would ask you tonight to set the public hearing date for March 25th.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Committee, I'm going to ask staff first if there were any members of the public that may have had any questions or comments. Hearing none. Committee, any questions or comments of Catherine in reference to the presentation?
It's Walters, I move for approval.
McKiernan,
Townsend,
second.
second.
Commissioner Johnson has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Thank
No,
you.
I just hit the wrong button. I'm sorry, Chair.
Yeah, that's all right. It was awful quiet there. I just wondered if we were even online here for a minute. We have a motion and a second to approve the hearing date, public hearing date to March 25th, I believe it is, 2021. So with that, I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Catherine. Looks like a nice development, part of our community that needs it. We're moving on to item number 2. That will be the IRB and TIF policies, and I believe that Catherine will be making that presentation also. So hopefully she's still able to speak online. So Catherine, this is for information only committee. So Catherine, whenever you're ready.
All right, can everyone still hear me? Excellent. Okay, so this is, as the Chair Burrows mentioned, this is for information only. There are 2 different policies that since I arrived started working for the UG back almost 3 years ago now, I've wanted to actually codify a lot of the stuff that we do into policy form and update some. So that is what I'm bringing forward to you today. So it's 2 different policies. One is an update to the industrial revenue bond policy. The other is a brand new policy for tax increment financing. The plan would be to have get your input both tonight, but then also into the next couple weeks, even months, depending on your desire. And then Kathleen Von Atchen and myself would be coming forward with a kind of packet of financial policies that would be approved in one fell swoop. And this would be part of that package. So I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. The policies are in your packet in their full form. And so just kind of some of the changes, clarifications, that type of thing that I want to draw your attention to. So in terms of the industrial revenue bond policy, this was last updated in 2010. There really aren't, honestly, significant policy recommendations, changes. Really, what I'm going for here was to really just provide far more clarity. There were areas that were, everything is obviously very consistent with the Kansas statute, but in terms of what kind of our actual process and how we do things, there was a little to be desired. So, for example, sorry about this. Okay, just kind of a couple of the updates that, again, kind of I wanted to make sure that the policy actually reflects of what we are generally doing and what you all have made clear you would like to see in terms of kind of how we deal with these type of projects. So two kind of updates in terms of the percentage. One is adding, so we've got every project gets, not every project, but every project that's eligible, you have start with a 45% base abatement. And then there's ability through bonus provisions, sorry, that should say bonus, not bond provisions, bonus provisions to receive more than the 45% up to 75% abatement at the high end. What I wanted to add here is that not only are we looking at those bonus provisions, but also looking at the financial gap. And this can go both ways. One, in some instances, they may not need more than the 45%. Even if they do get some of these things, if this is filling the gap, then that's the financial gap they have. That's the amount of abatement that is necessary. There are also situations where there may be, because of the bonus provisions, and I'll get into what those look like, there may be a situation where, there's other policy reasons why you as the committee and the commission would want to provide additional abatement, but it doesn't quite work out in terms of the bonus provisions. So this just really provides you with a bit more flexibility when it comes to really analyzing that financial gap and making sure that we are not giving any additional benefit, that we are really only filling that gap at the maximum. Additionally, we have retained the plan that no project shall exceed 75% for 10 years. Of course, in compelling and unique circumstances, the commission can approve more than that. At least in my time here, we have not seen that to be the case. But again, it would be up to you if that situation did present itself. In terms of the bonus provision, so again, this is once you get that 45%, this is how you get kind of from that 45% abatement up to the maximum 75% abatement. Major capital investment, that has remained the same. Target areas also has remained the same. This is geographic areas. Targeted industries, also no change. So all very consistent with what you've been seeing here in the past few years. Residency, this is one where I really wanted to try to place a heavier burden on companies that are currently in Wyandotte County, in KCK. They are wanting to build an additional property, or they're wanting to build an expansion. This is a great tool for that. And so instead of solely focusing on future hires, which gets a little complicated with a project, with a program like this, because that really puts a lot of the impetus on kind of looking forward and making sure that they did what they say they're going to do, even though we would have already, had the bonds issued and all of that. So I wanted to kind of add something to this where if you are a current Wyandotte County company and you are wanting to use this program to build another building, expand, I want to know what your existing company is. What percentage of your existing workforce live in Wyandotte County? And so that could be in addition to, you wouldn't get additional bonus for that, but I think that is an important thing to see. Kind of past performance could frequently dictate future performance. LMW, no change. Environmental design, that was specifically called out that you needed to have LEED certification. Over the last 10 years, LEED is just one of many environmental design certifications that can be achieved. So we have made that so it's not solely LEED, and it gives a little more flexibility there. And then the two new additions are actually transit and childcare. These are two things that particularly our work with the Wyandotte EDC has really focused on. The new Project Urban, the Urban Outfitters out by the Speedway, is a great example of how we were able to utilize these, where we see transit and making sure, especially with industrial projects, which is really what this tool is focused on, that you are able to get the workforce in Wyandotte County to the jobs that are being built as part of this program. And so to do that, we want to make sure that our transit system is robust and that is really taking into account where the new jobs are. So if there is, and again, all of this is called out in far more detail in the plan or in the policy, but if there are actual transit and transportation provisions made, there is a bonus that can be achieved, as well as with childcare. This is another one that we've seen over quite a long time. There's far more childcare options that are needed in Wyandotte County to make sure that the folks that live and work here are taken care of and have that continuity of care. So another one that if that is worked into the program and you can prove that to us, then that would be an additional opportunity for a bonus. Then in terms of abatement, that's all statutorily required, so no change. The performance agreement, we did add a little more strongly some provisions for a clawback. So this is basically if you have said all of those bonus provisions, if you have said you're doing X, Y, and Z, and then in our annual reports, we realize that you have not met any of those, then we actually would have the ability to either reduce the abatement, the annual abatement, or in some extreme cases, actually cancel it completely. So this really is to ensure that the folks that are utilizing this tool are doing what they claim they were going to do with the project. The fee schedule, there is no change. That's another one that in the meantime, I am both legal and finance have reviewed this. I'm having them review, since this is important, the fee schedule, having them review that one more time before it would certainly come back to you all for approval. So that is the industrial revenue bond policy. So I can pause there if there are any questions before we move on to the TIF.
Committee questions? I'm looking to see if there's any hands up. I don't see any hands up, Catherine. Oh, I do. I apologize. Mr. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Catherine, I just wanted to applaud the addition of the transportation and the child care. I think it speaks to the changing demographics in Wyandotte County. I think it also speaks to a means by which we can help to increase or to better the quality of life for our residents here that might not otherwise be able to have obtained those jobs. And so I think we saw that evident in the Urban Outfitters presentation, if I'm not mistaken, or something of that nature.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that that this is something that we're going to add as part of our normal process. So again, just wanted to tip my hat and say appreciate that. Appreciate you all for deciding to add that to the place where we can get some additional incentives there.
Thanks.
I don't see any other hands up. Catherine, I have two questions, if I may. One of them being the commencement of abatement, and I believe it was towards the end of your presentation, 2 pages back. I don't have a page number. It'd be under just term of abatement, item C.
Oh, sure.
Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was waiting for you to pull it up. I apologize.
Yep. No, I got it.
I had a question, just for clarification, and I believe I do understand what it dictates here. The IRB that is presented for the addition of an existing business, the entire business is the business that is there initially is still taxed at the rates it is, and they're paying their base.
Right.
It's the commencement of the new part of the business and the new buildings that will come on after the calendar year, once they have received, once they start their business with the new development, correct?
That's exactly right.
Wonderful. I wanted that clarification. I wanted to make sure I read that properly.
Yep.
Then the next one I have is on the next page, item number 7B, clawbacks.
Mhm.
I'm pleased to see that in there. Even the state is taking action on modernizing their clawbacks and putting a little more emphasis on them. It doesn't state in here, who will be checking on the criteria of those businesses to determine if clawbacks are necessary. It's great to have it in language. It's another thing to have someone that's responsible for doing that and presenting it back to the commission for consideration.
That's a great point, and I think a big reason why a lot of cities don't do it is because it is additional work. So with the IRB, there actually is a requirement by the state, so by state statute, to have an annual report. So we receive not only an administrative payment, typically it's $1,000 from each company that has an IRB, plus they have to provide us with quite a lot of information, and we would be adding to the required information that they have to provide us annually, any of these things that we have added. So the transit, the childcare, to ensure that they are still on track. If they have, for example, oftentimes companies will promise they will hire a certain number of employees during, new hires. That's a one that we've been tracking now for a number of years to make sure that they actually hire the number that they say they're going to hire. And if they don't, is it kind of within the realm of, okay, you missed it by 2 employees, or wow, you're 100 off. That's that. Now we need to actually take some action. So we do receive that report annually.
Yeah, and it says we reserve the right to alter or terminate. And I think that's important. You gave 2 good examples. 2 people shy of meeting their mandate versus 100. Those are 2 extreme measures. And so we have the right to alter and or terminate the tax abatement, which I think is extremely important. My concern was that we have a remedy to at least follow up, that someone and somebody will be making those checks and balances to ensure that we have some meat into this clawback policy.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my questions. Committee, any other questions? Staff, anybody from the community want to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to, thank you, Catherine. That moves us to item number.
I actually have the
the-
tax, the TIF policy as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself. Thank you.
All right,
Your
so
convenience.
great, thank you. The TIF policy, tax increment financing, this is actually a policy that we have never had specific for the unified government. It was kind of rolled into a general abatement policy that it didn't quite fit there because a TIF is not an abatement. It's actually a redirection of the incremental funds. So I feel like this is an important one to make sure that we have kind of a standalone policy. Again, consistent with the Kansas statute authorizing the TIF for our use. And really a lot of what you will see in this one, you'll kind of look at it, and especially this committee, who is very well aware of how we do TIFs, what are the different provisions. You'll look at this and say, yeah, this is everything we already do. So what are you talking about? And that is exactly right. So really what we are trying to do here is to actually codify those preferences, which you have seen as one-offs in each of our development agreements, but making sure that we're kind of actually showing that as a real policy of the Unified Government Commission, rather than, you know, something else that we have to negotiate with every single development agreement. Additionally, just having a policy, frequently we'll have a developer who's interested in potentially doing something. They've got a lot of questions. If there is something that I can hand them and say, here's our process, here's what the commission really focuses on, they can actually look at this, get a lot of their questions answered, and then we're kind of hitting the ground running. So, so a couple of just these preferences and the fee schedule that I wanted to point out that are a little different from just the Kansas statute. That, you know, a lot of this is just showing people, well, these are the things that are required, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of actual preferences that are stated, one being that the commission really prefers pay-as-you-go financing. So that is pretty much all of the TIFs that you've seen since I have arrived, I believe. But this is, the UG is not going to be authorizing any special revenue bonds, certainly not any general obligation bonds, which include the backing of the unified government. Those type of financing tools, which are available under TIF, but really are for those very special circumstances that are just really above and beyond. For, you know, just your general TIF, already you have to be a project that's a bit above and beyond, but we certainly prefer pay-as-you-go as a way to regulate that. Additionally, the public financing should never exceed more than 20% of the total project cost. This, again, something that you see in all of our development agreements. This is spelled out, but want to make sure that this, again, is kind of codified in the policy. Another one is a sunset provision. So this is something that we've only recently started adding into the development agreement. But this is, for example, in this case, it actually worked out well for us, but I don't want this to become the norm. A good example is the EPIC TIF. So that is where the Menards at 18th and I-35 is going. This is a district that was put in place almost 20 years ago. So that really kind of shows you how long it could take between the approval of a district and a project plan. However, that's a really rare circumstance that in this case worked out. But in most cases, if you have a district that's put in place, we want to know that there is a plan that is also coming quickly. Now recognizing that some districts you have multiple plans, so that's why I don't put a specific number of years in here, but I want to make sure that that is something that we are always looking at and adding into our development agreements. You know, we would like to see that you have started the project and finished it at a certain time in that project plan that you are presenting to the commission for approval, as well as kind of what those future phases kind of give some time, realistic timelines for those. Another one is an addition of a TIF cap. This is kind of tied to that public financing, the not to exceed 20%, but also, a lot of times we talk about a TIF that it is, a certain percentage of the incremental property value for, a certain number of years, which is great. But we also, there's quite a lot of variation in terms of we do our best guess in terms of putting those numbers in front of you. But really it depends on the appraiser's office and BOTA. What is that incremental value? So we're not always exactly right in terms of what that percentage is. It's kind of a best estimate. So that's why I think adding a TIF cap in addition is really helpful, because if for some reason the project grows, that's also another good reason. So they've actually put more investment in, and they have reached that gap that they had. They reached it faster than we had anticipated. Again, our whole goal is only to provide as much as necessary to get the project done and no more. So we don't want any of these projects profiting off of these incentive tools. So if you reach that cap before kind of the percentage that we had estimated, then that TIF is terminated. And then the final thing, this is another one that you've seen in all the development agreements recently, but actually formalizing that there is a 1% of that increment, which is an annual TIF administrative fee. Our finance and treasury department, put in a lot of work annually on all of these TIFs. And so making sure that the unified government is compensated for their time kind of throughout the life of the TIF is important. And with that, I'm done. Any other questions on TIF? Otherwise, have a lovely evening.
Committee, any questions of Catherine? I see no hands up at this time. Catherine, I have one question and a comment. I'm pleased to see that we're getting into a formal document, something that we can refer to. The feasibility study, these were never in writing. These were just requested, correct?
So the feasibility study, again, it kind of depends on the type and need, but we fully base that on the Kansas state statute and when those were required. So now we're making that a little more clear, I think.
Well, thank you. And I'm pleased to see us have some formal policy in place. Did these policies come from an organization that helped us do this, or did our legal put this together?
Actually, my department put it together. And went over legal looked it over. So we didn't do anything that was crazy.
Well, I do have a question on the very last page, page 6, right underneath the fees that were subject for review. Under other items, it places the county administrator is authorized to establish the fees ranging from $250 to $2,500 per request, including requests for time extensions to the agreement and project plans, and request for amendments to existing agreements. Is he to have sole authority to do that without going to legal or without bringing it back for commission approval or commission input?
So as it would stand, yes, within that certain range. Basically, at this point, we do not have an application fee. If someone comes back to us and says, hey, I had this TIF and I want to totally change it, there's nothing in writing, because it's not part of the Kansas state statute, that we can actually add an additional fee for our time. So this would be something that presumably, it may be another 10 years if we look at the IRB as an example before we really review this policy and update it again. Now, of course, that doesn't have to be the case, but kind of preparing for that eventuality, that, if there is, kind of looking around, we'd like to increase any of those at any time. That would be part of the fee schedule that I believe the entire fee schedule does get presented to you all, but we would not bring this as a specific kind of standalone edit.
Okay, I guess in rereading it, listening to your explanation, I read it to understand that this didn't relate just to the fees. It related to the agreements themselves, that he had the authority to change amendments to existing agreements.
Oh, no,
But
no,
I
no.
don't think that was a misunderstanding on my
Yeah,
end, that
this is just
he
the
has
fees.
authority just to make fees and charges for those issues pertaining to the TIF and or the design of the project, and put a fee to those changes. Thank you. That's all I have. Committee, anyone else?
And if there are any other
No further
comments, please reach out. We'll anticipate bringing this forward in the next couple months with kind of the larger packet of financial policies.
Great. And Catherine, thank you. I think it's very important. It's very forward thinking, and establishes written policies and procedures and how we are to operate. And I think that's extremely important. So kudos to you and the department and legal for putting something together to protect the interests of our community.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. Okay, committee, any other questions? I don't see anybody else's hands up. So we'll move on to item number 3 this evening. And I believe item number 3 is an overview by our county treasurer, Mr. McKessick, and Andrea Para, our deputy treasurer, in reference to the government quarterly investment report. Thanks for hanging with us, and Mr. McKessick, it's all yours.
Good evening. Thank you very much. We're here tonight to do our presentation, which we do every quarter, which illustrates where we are with our investment. And tonight we have the fourth quarter investment report that we'll go through. And at this point, I will turn it over to Andrea Para, who is our deputy treasurer and cash manager.
Good evening, Andrea Para, deputy treasurer. Go ahead and share my screen for you all. Okay, as Rick mentioned, we are here reporting on the fourth quarter of 2020 investment report for the year end. Gonna be pretty quick, not a lot to really report in a positive way. Average yield showing at 0.91, or excuse me, days to maturity are down to 82 for the year end. It was at 112 days from quarter 3. A lot of those long-term investments had finally matured that were, put in place prior to Rick and I that have lowered that amount of days. Portfolio components we were at the end of the year at 71% cash and then about 29% in investments. Just shy of almost 90% of that is all within 1 year of things that Rick and I had done early on last year. That'll come up here in the next quarter or so for maturing. Next item is just a few key metrics as far as the yield. It is down. It was at 0.96 from quarter 3. Still, of course, beating our target T-bill rate, which was at 0.11. Issuer compliance, one thing that we will always try to strive to meet. Full year 2020, we can excitingly report that we stayed within compliance of that rule in our policy, all 4 quarters, which is great. Hopefully to keep that as much as possible. I know it is a note that we like to mention every time we meet with you all. Interest was down. That is to be expected because of the pandemic. A lot of things were going on in 19 that were not going on in 2020. Hopefully we can make a better change there. Again, the market is the market right now. There's not a lot we can really do. Next slide shows just kind of where the portfolio sits. We're at about 239 million in total. 25% of that is CDs. And then the other 4% is going to be about 10 million in agencies. We have 2 of them at this point that were both long-term prior to Rick and I, one of which is coming up to mature soon. The other one, I believe, is in about a year or so. Other than that, we have a few financial institutions left, 3 of them, as you can see, Capital Federal, Commerce Bank, and Security Bank of KC. Only other thing we really wanted to report on would be our next slide here, kind of what happened. Very little. We had 1 maturity, a Capital Federal investment that was set up in 2007 by my predecessor, 2017. Matured, another long-term investment that came in due. We did not go out for bid. We still don't have any plans to. That coupon rate is where it sits as of this morning's investments as well. It has not budged in probably 3/4 or so. Until we see that get up there, we probably have no reason to go out for bid. Unless there's a particular thing we think we might want to try. You know, we're open for ideas, thoughts, comments, something maybe unique or short term, but we just really don't advise right now based on the market. With that, just kind of going over the fund category cash balances of where the whole portfolio sits based on fund. Showing 40% is restricted by bond documents such as capital projects. 17% of that is going to be the general fund. There's a few things combined there. We have 16% that is for operations of the enterprise funds. 23% is for restricted state statute for things like the special revenue, grants, tax levies. And then 4% is the debt service payments that we have semi-annually. I want to speed through that. Of course, I can go into any questions, comments, concerns. Otherwise, we're about done with this.
Committee, any questions? Make sure nobody's, I see no hands at this time. I have one question. Do you know what the dollar amount is for the 4% on the annual debt service payments?
Not at this very moment, but I could provide that after the date. It's just for me to be able to get that number, I would have to remote into my system, and it's not something I could do quickly for you. I could get that to you as soon as tomorrow.
Yes, 4% is a small number, but it could be millions of dollars, and it would be important if we had a dollar value associated that to the annual debt service payments. It would help with the budget crisis or the budget situation coming forward with the commission. And thank you for some of the most trying of times financially for us in keeping us in the positive cash position you have. Goes to all staff in your presentation for the fourth quarter. You're to be commended.
Commissioner Burrows, this is Kathleen, and I can tell you how much is in the debt fund at the end of 2020. If you can give me just 2 seconds. I did want to point out, though, that any ending cash that's sitting in the debt funds by statute has to remain there and can only be used to pay debt service. So I'm looking for the report right now. Just 2 seconds, 2 seconds.
Kathleen, you can find that and send it to me. I'm the one that had interest in it. Just trying to.
I have it now.
You know,
it's
okay.
It's roughly this includes all of our city, our county, and all of the TIF funds. There's roughly 4 million in TIF. The total is 7.8 million. 4 million of it is in our TIF funds, and the remainder is in our city and our county debt service fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Kathleen.
Yes.
Committee, should you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Andrea or Rick or Kathleen. Again, I want to commend you all for providing us this information and for looking out for our best interest financially. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee, that's all I have this evening on the agenda. I want to thank you and the public for your attendance this evening. So if there's no further business, I would adjourn the meeting. I believe.
Thank you very much.
I can make that motion, but we are adjourned.
Thank you.